everyone. It's Candace Goldman today here with Pedro Frias. I think I pronounced your name correctly. Hi,
Correct.
Pedro.
Yes.
It has been so long since we've talked. I mean, like, I don't know what, a year more? What? How long has it been since we've chatted?
I think before all of this madness started in the world.
I think right as it started, because it seems to me a conversation about a white rabbit came to mind the last time we talked. So I think we were just starting this this thing about what's going on in the world.
True. I think it just had started or it was about to start. That's true.
Yeah. So and you and I connect every once in a while on Facebook. And Pedro does these live Facebook videos, and he does them in Portuguese. And I look at him doing these videos, wishing I knew more languages than English, and often that language was Portuguese, so I could hear what's going on with you. So that's why we're connecting today, finding out what's going on with you and just talking about current things, I guess. So please go ahead. What's up? What's new? And you and I, we were talking about timelines and bilocating and just all those kinds of things that we love to talk about. So
so I've been growing a community here in Portugal. It's getting bigger and bigger, which is awesome. And I've been putting all my efforts to teach them how to navigate in this strange but more spiritual world. I think it's getting more and more spiritual. Everything that happened in the last year and a half, more or less, it made some people awake. So more and more people, and it was like very overwhelming. Suddenly people that never thought in a million years that could be spiritual, they just woke up to the reality that, oh, wow, maybe I am, and start feeling stuff. And just for you to have an example, today I had a woman with 55, 56, and she came here very disoriented to my office, here to where I am. And she came here very disoriented because someone recommended her to come here and show what's happening with her. She's starting to see stuff, seeing, hearing stuff, just open herself completely. And she was like, crazy, what's this? What's happening? And I'm going, to the mental institution or something. They said, calm down. So I explained everything to her. I gave her some tools, some prayers, and I said, you command your own space. Don't be afraid. Don't let your vibration go down, and all the things, And so she, felt so relieved after it. But, for people to just start being psychic all of the sudden, it's very strange, because 20 years ago, this wouldn't happen with people,
Right. Well, I don't know. So, not as many people anyway. That's for sure. And I wrote the tiniest thing on Facebook about that, about bilocation. And I got a flood of comments and replies where people, first they wanted to know more about that. And then, or what I thought that was. And, there's a lot of ways of describing all of this stuff. But more than that, I got a lot of replies and comments about what was going on in people's lives concerning the same kind of thing, especially lately. So those kinds of conversations with, our community are really important to hear. So can we start there? Did your lady, your client, other than sort of seeing and hearing things, did she have any sort of time slips or anything? Because that's some of the more interesting ways of talking about what's going on with us right now.
Yeah, but not in her case, because she's not aware of it yet. But if I can start the topic about speaking about all these timelines and the crossings, the best way I could get my head around this, because it was very strange, like all of a sudden everything changed, and I was like, where am I? This wasn't the world I came to,
Yeah.
What's happening? So, Bashar explained that this is my own words, but the way I got what he said, it's like we are in a kind of a roundabout of many different roads and timelines. It's like every timeline is like a road, and now we are circling inside the same, and we are looking at each other saying, where do you come from? You don't belong in this city, go away. So no, you go away. but eventually this is starting now to circle out. Even astrologically, as I found out, this was supposed to be a really downwards year where we just, get this vibe of really coming down. But now everything is going out. The thing is that as you start to focus your vibration into these different timelines, you might be shifting lanes out of the sudden. This is just the global conscious. Then there is the individual experience, which is different. We can go into that as well. But as far as globally, what makes sense for me is that we are just encountering ourselves in this very weird, wormhole or something like that of timelines. But eventually everyone is going to go into different directions. I think it's that thing about the new earth and the old earth. And I think that makes more sense for me now than ever. Sure. What Dolores was mentioning in their books and throughout all our life. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes sense.
You and I were starting to talk about Nostradamus a little bit, and I think you might have a memory of something that happened between us even more than me. Can we review that a little bit and talk a little bit about that and Nostradamus and Dolores and the New Earth and kind of where we're thinking about how all that's going now?
I remember we did a session where we are trying to do this timeline therapy with you, but with some people, you just have the session be whatever it has to be. So you went just away and off you went, and you were with Dolores, and Nostradamus came, and you were quite surprised. Why is Nostradamus here? And they were showing, like, I don't remember exactly. I don't know if we have that recording or not, but it was showing the Earth. Then it got to my attention through a colleague of ours that Dolores mentioned something in her books regarding the Nostradamus. The book is how do you call it? Conversation with Nostradamus?
Yeah, there's a 3-volume set of those.
So those books. And imagine a lot of things that at that point, Dolores was not getting the full picture of what he was saying. And if you get those informations and you cross with everything that's happening in the world, especially those things that are now being forced into people, it seems that after a while, we're going to find out that this was not so good. And there are consequences through humanity, to the humanity. So it was quite revealing to understand that. I was like, the information was coming, and I remember your session and you being admired. Why is Dolores bringing Nostradamus, But he was showing something circular and the earth and all the rest of it. And it's quite specific. If you go and read the books, and if you make the assumption that he was talking about whatever is happening now, it's going to be very, very specific,
Yeah. It's so fascinating because there's a few memories of Dolores and Nostradamus that are, that stay in the forefront of my mind. And one of them is, it's funny with Dolores. Dolores made a lot of, she was in different lanes too, right? There was things that happened kind of in her psyche. And I've got a cat in my lap in case anybody here, at least let everyone see this. So her tail at least doesn't seem so weird as it's flitting around in my lap. Dolores actually would talk about Nostradamus a little bit towards the end of her life, saying things like, those prophecies didn't really come to pass, because a lot of them had to do with the coming of, the year 2000, I think, in Dolores's mind. And she sort of did this for, we've changed timelines. I mean, she would be very casual about when people wanted to talk to her about Nostradamus there, the couple last years of her life, because I was next to her when she signed books and was in these conferences and classes, and a lot of people wanted to talk to her about this. And she kind of dismissed it. She wanted to talk about convoluted universe things. And she sort of thought, I think she as much said it, we got out of those timelines. In her mind, she'd already kind of put some of that stuff to bed. And I think what you're saying, even through our session that we had together, that may not be the case. So that's one thing that I'm thinking. And the second thing that I'm thinking is, and I know I've mentioned this a lot in other shows, but maybe it comes to bear right now, which is, the one and only time I ever spent the night in Dolores's house was the night before her memorial service. So it's several months after her death. And let me tell you, that night was insanely intense with dreams and a lot of different things. And the one thing that stands out most to me is in kind of a lucid dream moment. I'm sitting up on the little sofa that I'm sleeping on, and in my dream, in my experience, whatever you want to call it, she walks out of her office and she's got her arm around Nostradamus. And she came up to me and she said, it was very short, very brief, but she said, Candace, here's the important thing about Nostradamus: the way we communicated. Focus on that, how we communicated. And then that was it. The dream was over. It was just gone. And then there's a PS to that, because I know that there's a book out there written on Nostradamus's life by somebody else, not Dolores, who basically, it was a more traditional, biography of his, shall we say. And in the interview, or in some of the information that had come up, what was written in this book was, somebody actually asked, how is it that you are getting this information from the future? Who's telling you this? And his response is fascinating to me. He says, spirits from the future. He just answers that. Spirits from the future gave me this information. Now, who was Dolores Cannon except for somebody from the future?
Exactly.
Right? So there's one level of it, but maybe there's other levels, and maybe there's a future Dolores that, and there's all of that. And I've had some of my own, and I'm getting goosebumps, so I'm figuring I'm on the right track there. I've had some of my own very specific experiences. For whatever reason, I had more of them in 2020 than I, at least about future communication, a little bit from specific, shall we say, players on the planet right now. I got some communication from them, and they've gone quiet this year. And now the communication I've gotten is let's say more refined. Just the BQH class that we went through was very much about the angelic realm. So, much different sort of focus, but that's fascinating to me about the roundabout. I think it's probably the best way of describing it that I've heard. I often say it's like tracing paper on top of each other. Like I can see you, you can see me. My reality is so not your reality. And once you kind of get clear on your own reality, things become certainly not easier as far as things like some choices other people are making, because that's just not going to happen. But it gets easier when you become clear of where you are and what is important to you and what you want to stand for and how you want to walk through these days, because it's intense out there still, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very intense. And as you were mentioning, the roundabout, you have to stay in it until you find your own lane.
Yeah. So
it's like, for many people, I know that many people that are watching this show are thinking like, when do I get out? I'm right there with you, I'm feeling the same. But this is also for us a challenge of insisting in one vibration. And this connects with the bilocation thing as well, because as you said, okay, it seems that this is recent now, but it doesn't mean that before we were not able to use the same universe mechanisms. As you know, I'm very passionate about all those things. And I've created like this kind of reflex wheel, if I can say that in English, it makes sense, which is a map that you can figure out why does someone is like it is that is in front of you. I think I did something with you in the past as well in private regarding this. It's like when you understand why is the person that you are having a relationship, or a coworker or a friend or husband, wife, whatever, why is it like that? Because you are somehow broadcasting a frequency that makes him be like that, which means that at some extent you can influence the other people by your own vibration. And people can, if you change your vibration, people can change, or you can change into a different parallel version of that person. that is completely different than the one you were relating, and you will not be aware of that. No one is aware of that.
Right.
And the phenomenon of bilocation is exactly when you are jumping into the timeline where it's already a different person. And from that point on, if you anchor yourself to that parallel reality, that person is going to be way different, slightly different. For example, at this point of my life, I've been doing some exercises to change a number of things like everyone does. And my wife, for example, now is a sports freak, you know, she's just wakes up at 6 a.m. and does sports every day in the morning. I said, who is this woman?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It changed radically. I said, okay, it's part of the game. Let's have fun with it. But it was really, really fun because, okay, she was sometimes did some sports, but it was not like in this way, you know, very disciplinary kind of situation. That's okay. That's her choice. But sometimes you see these people change if you are, you know, tapping into the vibrational change and shifts that you can do. People change. And so it's getting a little bit crazy because people with this vibrational confusion in the planet, because so many people are broadcasting different things. I think now for us spiritual people, what the guides are asking us to do is to lock into a vibration, very high vibration, just ignore about all the earthly kind of things. I was about to say a bad word, but things, you know, and just focus on that, because it's like a lighthouse that you just beam your light in so that people can be anchored, and then we can manifest this jump all together with a group of people. And that makes a lot of sense, although it's hard because we live in the, you know, physical plane.
I think we go through that with people all the time. And here's where I land on this. There is such a thing as acknowledging all of that stuff and staying in your high vibe, you know, lane in the roundabout, shall we say. But then there's this other version of an absolute kind of denial and bypassing of it. And I think those are two very different things. And I think it behooves us to be aware of the timelines that others are on, their goals, you know, what seems to be, and because it affects us too. So I think that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And it might be a trap sometimes, because you
Yes.
can trap yourself into lowering your vibration, to get yourself frustrated and very angry and very like, you know, how, but there are people to do it as well. And you can see those people now getting online and getting really out there on the street, you know, just fighting for freedom and all these kind of things. They are coming out, and it's their job. Our job is probably to do different things. That's what I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I might have been on the edges of some of those
Me too.
those public things.
You know
Maybe
what? You know
not
what?
up front and center, but I've been on the edges.
You know what, Candace? It's because of the indigo nature. Everyone that came into Earth with the indigo, you know, structure, which is something, actually, who talks a lot about this is Magenta Pixie. And the indigo structure is like an immunity that you have for all the different narratives that you might be a victim to. And it's clear that all indigo people, or when you have this structure, that you will be a fighter somehow. Somehow will be there.
Yeah. I've said it before, and this kind of encapsulates it. If I lived in a place like Australia right now, I'd probably be in prison. I mean, that's just who I am. I want to jump back a little bit. I don't want to forget Magenta Pixie, though. I just want to say very briefly, at the moment, our dear friend Magenta Pixie is not doing well and is in hospital.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it's only been a few days, and we won't go into details, but let's just say anybody who's ever been affected or benefited from beautiful Magenta Pixies videos or energy or assistance over the years, please send her a prayer. Things are serious. They're serious with Magenta, and she's in the hospital. So please think of her and send her energy and light. Now I want to jump back to the whole bilocation thing. So because we brought it up, I want to go ahead and briefly explain something that happened, because it happened just like 2 days apart. And the first, you know, we always even though, you know, it really makes me giggle like a little bit. Your client who comes and says, "Oh my gosh, am I going crazy?" And you know, when I had that was when I had that many years ago in the mid 1980s when I was having spontaneous out of body experiences. I mean, I actually like tried to keep myself awake because I would lay down and I would have another one and I didn't know what they were. And my goodness, sometimes I'm like, I wish I could have that back again, because now that I'm not afraid of that, it's not, you know, it doesn't happen as often for me. But anyway, what happened to me in terms of bilocation was just the other day. My dad, you know, 91-year-old dad, who's kind of, his memory's going, and I'm watching this, and we're still good, but he's 91, losing his memory, and he goes to bed. You know, he's kind of like a kid. He goes to bed early, sleeps late. You know how it is when you're older. So he's already in bed and he's getting up. He gets up several times a night to drink water and use the restroom. Very normal pattern for him. So it was a day just before, maybe a couple days before the BQH class, and Tom was in the dining room helping put together these notebooks. And I'm standing at the kitchen sink, and Dad comes in from this direction and he's walking towards the sink. And I'm seeing that he's coming for his first glass of water of the night, right? So I get a glass and I fill it up, and I you know, he's coming right in my vision, like right there, because the sink is over, like, you know, I'm looking over the sink and he's coming this way. And all of a sudden, I don't see him anymore. I mean, he's halfway to the kitchen and he turns around, I think, or something happens. And I'm like, what? Because I've never seen him do that. So I thought, did he forget what he was doing? So I'm kind of thinking about his mind, right? And so I take the glass and I walk straight over to his bedroom. He's tucked in bed with covers up to here. There's no way he could have gotten in bed by the time I just walked those few steps over there. Believe me, he walks slowly these days. And you know, and I put my hand on him. I'm like, did you just get up to drink water? And he's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So I walk back to the kitchen and I set the glass down, and Tom is still putting in pages into the notebook. And I said, well, that was weird. And he said, what? And I told him what happened. And he said, well, your dad, you weren't in the kitchen. He said, but your dad was just like 30 seconds ago. You weren't here. And he filled himself a glass of water and had his water and walked back to the bedroom. And I'm just standing there with the glass of water going, you know, he's like, I don't know where you were, but you weren't here just a second ago. And there's no place in the house where else I could have been. It was very odd. And I just did the thing that, you know, it's like, okay, it's one of those odd things. But then like 2 days later, the same thing or something similar happens. Again, I think it's about the class. We're getting ready to do the class. And I have this question and I want to ask Tom something. And I go into the bedroom and I don't see him. And he's in the bathroom, and we have a very strange house that it's one of these dumb designs. I think it's really dumb, where there's no door to the bathroom. It just goes straight into the bathroom where there's a shower, and the shower has a glass door. And I walk into the bedroom to ask him this question. I don't expect him to be taking a shower at all, because it's very early in the morning and I knew what his plans for the day were. And I'm like, what? And I'm seeing him take a shower because, again, no door and glass, and he's taking a shower. And I go, well, I'll just ask him when he gets out of the shower. I turn around, I go back again to the kitchen to do whatever. And there's no place for him to go. And after a few minutes, I'm like, well, he must be done with his shower. So I walk back to the bedroom. I look in there. He's not there. He's not there at all. And I look around and I look out the driveway. His truck is gone. And I get on the phone. I'm like, where are you? And he's in the next town over running an errand. He got up early and he'd been gone for like half an hour. And I walked into the room and was watching him take a shower. Very, very strange, and just very quick together. And that's what I posted on Facebook. I was like, this timeline collapse thing, it's really real, and it's kind of freaky. And you can start, it's uncomfortable because, especially in my life, watching my dad and his mind have failed some synopsis stuff, I start to question my own mind too. Like, is it really a timeline thing, or am I going down the same memory loss route as my dad?
No. But let me just once, I want to ask you one thing, because I'm here been following different possibilities.
Sure.
What have you been doing in the last 2 weeks as far as your energy work, or preparing to class is one thing?
Yes, but also very, very much paying attention to nature, my dreams, and the messages that are coming to me, at me, from just the smallest things, walking
So-
outside, the trees, the snakes, the horses, the light, the thing. I mean, I'm seeing information come at me symbolically all over the place, and especially
Okay.
from outside in my dreams.
Actually, funny enough, there is no coincidences. I have
Of
here a
course not.
drawing that I did yesterday to explain something that I'm going to explain to you now. I think that in this case, you are actually jumping time. Nostradamus came again to my mind. You are entering different time frames. You know, you're not jumping sideways, you're jumping forward and back. So imagine that your father came into the kitchen. You are seeing a different time.
Yes.
It's not your time. You just jump forward into like 2 hours later when he actually comes. You
Yes.
understand? And your husband was the same. You jump back.
Yes.
You know, jump back
Yes.
like 2 hours when he was actually taking a shower. But so, and why does this happen? Because, you know, this circle that I'm here showing, it's like time. When you are in the third octave, you go outside. If you are dead, you come here. And I just explained this yesterday. It's like you are in a chair and you just rotate your chair and you are seeing 1500 and you are seeing 2000 and you are seeing whatever you want to see. You're just inside the light. So if you are inside the light, you just like you're doing exactly. So, but if you come like a tiny of the density, like we all can do, you can actually have some of that feeling, which is the distance between 2 points becomes thinner. And that's why you become a powerhouse of manifestation.
Yep.
Because you're not doing things on earth, you're doing things from a more high ground point of view.
Yeah.
And it seems that what you experienced there is just you came back into this kind of more bliss energy, and you are able, because it must be one of your talents. And also I'm connecting you all with 2 things that you already told me about your life that happened in your past. And it makes all sense that one of the gifts that you have, because we have many different gifts, psychic gifts. One of your gifts is actually time jump, you know, time shift, time manipulation. Yeah. No wonder you are a regressionist, you know.
Yeah, although that term is such a one-way direction, which I don't particularly care for, but I know we don't have many words. We just don't have many words to describe it. But here's something else that's happening. I don't know, you know, I'm kind of, sometimes I think I use Facebook as my diary. I mean,
I understand.
Not diary as in you don't want to read about it, but a lot of things that happen to me, especially with Dolores. But there's this, I'm in the middle of kind of a series of dreams. I get some dreams and they stop, and other dreams when they stop, with where Dolores is showing up, and I've been calling it Dolores in the Round Hotel. And I'm like in this place, and the dream just keeps picking up. And then I seem to be in a pause at the moment, I think for the BQH class, but where we left off in this series of dreams, I actually meet with these people and I'm asking some questions, and there's a person outside the circle. Dolores we're in a circle. There's the circle again. She's there. We're asking some questions, and there's a guy laying outside of the circle who I end up learning is my maternal grandfather, who died long, long before I was born, died when my own mother was only 12. And where we've left off in that story, believe it or not, is she's having me do a regression on him in my dream state. And I know that this has to do with picking different versions of time. And I'm just now exploring, why is he asleep there? and I'm sure there's many reasons why that might be, but there's a direction thing. And I think Dolores is like, let's take some of my skills, your skills into this dream world and see what we can shift over here. And there's more and more stuff coming through with Dolores. They're not just with me, but other students of quantum healing of the various types are having interactions with Dolores that are frankly, kind of astounding. If you feel a connection with her, not even as a practitioner, but anyone who might be listening to this, a lot of people who listen to these kinds of things just have such a fondness for this woman. Sitting in her energy, listening to her videos can jumpstart some of these things, reading her books, all of that stuff. And I'm thrilled with this aspect of it, that it just keeps expanding, right? That we keep thinking that we might understand some stuff, and we realize there's even less limits than we may have thought before.
There is no limits at all. That's the truth.
Right.
But the weird thing is that you are connecting into these different energies that come from everywhere. But especially, there is a sentence I like to say, which is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be. It's not a time difference or anything that you have to accomplish. It's a vibrational difference. So once you tap into different vibrations, because all this connection that we have in the world, you can connect with some healer in Mexico or whatever, and he's broadcasting this kind of frequency, of vibrational frequency that you never got it, and suddenly you are absorbing it. And one thing that also makes sense for what's happening with you with teaching classes is that when you are teaching someone, and this happens to me a lot, when it's approaching the day of the course, especially if we are physically present more than online, because the interaction is different. But I start to have activities throughout the night that wakes me up in the middle of the night. And sometimes I even say, yeah, please tell me already what we have to say. Can you please tell? Because all this higher self activity between all of you guys, you are actually shifting a lot of people's lives, because those people are going to change a lot of people's lives too. And this is so powerful that they start also entering your aura, if I can say. And it becomes really mellow, really malleable. It becomes really malleable. So we have to somehow understand and really focus on how we want to feel, right? And it's been fun, because lately, like in the last week too, I felt this really awesome boost of feeling inside, like expanding and really connecting with this bright future, ours and also mine and everyone else. So this is the secret, is to connect to this vision of openness, which is very good.
Last summer, we had this most amazing BQH group, and it was amazing how, in this way, just the synchronicities, the matching vibrations, but it came out very specifically. As an example, a colored sphere, a sort of consciousness sphere, was present in. I did just a quick group regression for 12 of them, and 11 of them had. While they're quiet, 11 of them come back with this. At least a colored sphere or a bubble or something is in all of them. And this time is kind of one of the reasons I brought the angel out for this show. This time with the students, it was an angelic connection. And there was this thing that happened that was so amazing. I haven't even really said it very much. I think I told it to one of the students they've all just left yesterday. So everything kind of quit just yesterday. But the setup is this: in my studio space in Augusta, above me. So it's a town building. This is an older building, and the bottom floors are storefronts or offices like mine, and then above are living units, and the units above me are Airbnbs, which is just perfect, absolutely perfect for what I've got going on there. And it didn't used to be that, by the way, and now it's perfect. And all three of the units that could be let were let by students. And when it came to practice day, I was down in the studio. I just sent them off and I was actually making soup. I put a thing there and everybody can then come eat soup between sessions. And I just love this. And then I go up and visit them. So while I'm, chopping and stirring, and all of a sudden, I'm almost getting vertigo. I'm getting woozy. I'm feeling the energies. You know what I'm talking about. And sometimes those intense energies are in sessions when healing is happening or shifting is happening for the client right in front of you. You know that feeling. And I'm feeling that. I'm just stirring onions at this point, and that all that's going on above me or just starting to get above me. And I'm just silently to myself, I'm thinking, man, I'm really feeling the energy and I'm really connected to these people who are here. And then I heard Dolores, as clear as a bell in my ear, say, "How do you think I feel?" And what I got from that was that she is still so connected to us down here. And when you out there as practitioners or people having a quantum healing session or thinking about Dolores or listening to her information or reading her books, that energy is connecting to her expression right now. And it's providing her with her own kind of expansion where she is, right? It's not just a one-way street.
No, it's not, because it's like being conscious of something. It's like when you are conscious, like you see in the quantum physics, when you are aware of something, you collapse the probability wave. But the circle can actually explain that again. And
is that the roundabout now, Pedro? Is this also the roundabout in your mind?
Well, it could be. Yeah, it could be like different planes and circles.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you are inside the light, right, for example, to explain why does a spirit or a conscious can actually see so many people, because you are inside one of these lines circling and you are seeing just whatever in front of you. But when you are in the light, it's like you are seeing from these points on, right? So if someone thinks about Dolores, and she just has to look, it's like a flashlight that she points and her light shines upon all this. Every spirit that has a higher conscious can do that, because I think there is this astral level where spirits go. But if you decide to go and to be a guide, like, for example, Einstein is, I don't know, you had Einstein in sessions, but yeah, you had.
Isn't this funny? I hear him every once in a while and with Pamela Erlin, and I hear him for whatever reason at gas stations when I'm putting fuel into my truck.
Yeah.
Why there? I don't know. And I can hear him laughing right now. But yes, Einstein, he's very interested in all of this too. Very interesting energy.
And just recently, I also got the confirmation from a friend of mine that has similar abilities to like Pamela has. And she said, I had this whole presence of the United States. I don't know. They were helping me with the speech. And it was like, so she asked, so are you sometimes with him? Yes, when he needs to have a speech, I am. It's just like this kind of energy. I said, well, how can I have an old ex-president? And it seems that he does that for a lot of people. And sometimes people are not aware that we have these energies. You remember the imprinting concept, of course. When you say that you have the imprinting. Actually, all spirit guides can actually have this phenomenon. We can connect to any spirit and any energy and download their energies for our own and, of course, the humanity benefits. So it's quite fun, actually, if you think about it,
There's so much to talk about. You and I could talk about so many things. I've taken a couple notes so I can keep my own mind focused, but I was thinking a little bit more about this ability to see and where you're in one reality and someone's in another. And I thought another great way of talking about that is two things that we know that we can talk about in history. And that's when Columbus and his ships were showing up to America, there's a story told that some of the Native Americans there on the East Coast would come to the shore and only a few of them could actually see the wooden ships out there, the shaman, the magicians, because they could, I I guess, imagine that there was such a thing, that something big and carrying people that large from that far away coming in, and they would stand right next to somebody else who could not see the ships coming in, which is fascinating. And you probably too have heard this, where people are on a busy city street and only one or two people can see the flying saucer or the spaceship right there. And other people are just like walking by like nothing's happening. I've had clients like that. I bet you have too, where how are you not seeing this? We're in the same reality, aren't we? But it's side by side. It's the roundabout again. It's the tracing paper that I often talk about, visions of, being in the same place, but expressing a completely different reality because of where our vibration is.
Yeah. And also levels of consciousness, I like to explain this as well with one thing that actually I have here and I can explain, which is a bottle. And funny, I always have one, but I brought another one. So imagine that every level here, it's levels of consciousness and levels of awareness. You can be side by side, but if I am in the 10th floor and you are and someone else is in the first floor, you will not see the same things. You'll not be aware of the reality as it is. And actually, there is this very beautiful monument in Portugal. You have to come here sometimes and see it, which has this well, that you go down, that really explains this difference of levels of consciousness. So if you are in a higher level of consciousness and you say to someone, listen, I'm seeing this to your life, don't do that. For example, we can say this to a friend. Yeah. If the friend believes in you, he might be brought up to the same level as you. But if he doesn't, he will stay here. And what he sees actually in your own building is actually your own version of the third floor. Are you making sense? So if I'm on the 7th floor, for example, Candace and I, we are pretty much the same level, of course. But if we connect with someone that is in the 3rd floor, very low reality understanding, and if you say, listen, I'm seeing this for you and blah, 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 and what the person is seeing is actually a perspective of the 3rd floor, and she or he will not see you. And this is so confusing for so many people, because can't you see that? How can't you see? This is so clear.
Yep. This is, and what you're saying, if you think about it, this is so much Dolores and the Round Hotel. I've had so many hotel dreams too, and we go up and down, and there's a central column, and it's like an atrium in the middle, and the different floors. And my brother's been part of this, and we go all the way up here to have some of these things with Dolores. And one of the things that I wanted to mention too is how, and you just finished talking about it. So your own vibration or frequency, or how you're looking at reality, your consciousness level. Look how this works. I'm finding that it's very, or can be very magnetic, right? So clumping of stuff. Example, like the one class that was all about the colored spheres, this last class that had so much angelic energy. But during, I think it was the 2nd day, or when in the BQH class that we just did, and I haven't talked about this at all, so how fun to be able to share it with you. So we do what we call in BQH, we do with these things called mock sessions, and we started them back when I was assisting Dolores all those years ago in all of her live classes. And I often tell the story about that I did this, it was my turn to pretend to have a session. When we set this up, even between me and Dolores, it was like, just pretend to go into a life, and we'll show how that works. It's just pretend, right? We call them mock sessions. But we found that pretending, at least for me and for many, if not most people, pretending simply brought you into an experience that could be quite profound. But there's this one story that I talk about because I pretended in a mock session. I just pretended to be this young woman, kind of hunkered down, hiding from soldiers and holding children. And this is the story that I tell. And when the pretend practitioner is pretend asking me what's going on, I'm very upset, screaming, crying. I'm very traumatic. And that's kind of the point of the session is, how do you handle that when that happens? It doesn't happen all the time at all. But what do? You need to be prepared as a good practitioner. And this poor, unfortunate woman, at least for her in that moment, she froze. She did nothing. She did absolutely nothing. And that's the point of the teaching is you don't freeze, you assist your client. And we took it from there. Here's the interesting story because it continues. I never had a chance even to say what my story was. And two of the other people in the class came up to me later and went, were you hiding? Was it rainy? Was somebody after you? Was it a soldier? And they were both correct. And that blew me away. It blew me away. I was just pretending something in my mind. I didn't say anything out loud. And two people in the audience or in the student group came up to me and knew exactly what I was experiencing in that moment, which I found astounding. So I often tell this story and then we do our own mock sessions. Well, guess what happens? I have a woman sit up there. We're doing a session and we're basically, it's a little part, it's more than mock sessions, meaning she's not pretending anything. We're going straight to trying to figure out about a heart issue she has, meaning a heartbreak issue. And we're just showing how the back and forth goes between client practitioner. Well, she descends straight into a past life where guess what? She's hiding from soldiers, which is just kind of astonishing. This was a woman who is new to all of this, wasn't sure she could experience anything at all. This was brand new. It was a incredible heart connection. And it was already sort of interesting, right? This happened. My husband was nowhere near any of this. And at some point he's in and we're doing this other mock session and I'm having him be the person who's going under, and I don't like that phrase very much, but he's going to be the client. I'm the practitioner. And we actually joke because I don't know anything. He's not telling me anything. That's the whole game. He's going to pick something. And it wasn't until it was over that he said he was going to go into a prehistoric life as a hunter-gatherer or something like that, in a prehistoric life. And he already had something in mind that he was going to do. And as he started beginning the story, he found that he was absolutely compelled to relate a story of a life of a Civil War soldier. And he gave details. He named the regiment of this that he was in. And what was he doing? Hiding from soldiers. And it was like, are you kidding me? We didn't even have time to tell him about the other gal or one of the stories so there, 1, 2, 3 in a row, hiding from soldiers. And this theme kind of keeps going because, my mother lived in wartime Germany and there was all that going on. And my grandfather and my mother, they all passed during that time. And all of that is intimately, I think, connected to what's going on here. And I find this sort of grouping and clumping and attraction. And I know that this ancestral perspective of what's going on in the control systems in the current reality is one of the things that, gets me, let's say, a little fired up.
I get you. But funny enough, if you think about all this experience of people connecting with the same life, there is one thing I sometimes say that gets people completely confused, and I understand, which is like, you don't have a past life. You are connecting to different beings that might be from the same oversoul, but you are only this person. You have one spirit, and that past life has a different spirit, although you are from the same soul. And people get a little bit upset. But if you think about it, let's think about possibilities, shall we?
Yeah.
So let's say that there is a spirit that's still lingering on, that has some connection eventually to one of you, that is trying to put forward a message. And because when you put someone in trance, we can actually incorporate any spirit out there.
Exactly. Yep.
And the spirit just was like there, hanging on. Does anyone pay? I need help. So off you went, and the spirit went, and you felt everything. And then another person. So this is one of the explanations. And sometimes the simplest thing can be that, because if you are realizing that the spirit is trying to just put a message, although it might be one of your, some of you past lives, or just one. This is one explanation. The another one is that actually it becomes relevant for you as a group that this story comes online. I don't know why, you know, sometimes stories has to come forward to our reality, you know. We have to know about Jesus, we have to know about Buddha and all this. So maybe that story needs to come online. So this story is relevant. So the story will try to get its way whatever it can. And if you don't make the download, she's going to find the story, right? As an entity, is going to find some writer somewhere in the world that tells that exact same story, you know, because the story needs to come forward. So there's so many ways we can look into this. And you can never say, actually, there's a sentence I really like also, which is, it is one thing or another thing. No, it's both things at the same time.
Yes.
Which is even stupider, right? Like even more crazy. It's both things. It is a spirit, but it's also a story, and it's also your past life, and it's
all
also
that. Well, we're
that.
multidimensional, right? This is what being multidimensional is all about, right? So here's the really interesting thing, though, the story, you bring that up so perfectly, about this Civil War soldier was the biggest thing for him, and because it was about, you know, him eventually dying and all that, and it was sort of like, well, what was the lesson of this life? And it was guess what, you know, don't tell me what to do, I'm a free spirit, right? Just don't be telling me what to do. So that's the energy that's in the room, right?
Yeah, so that story is so relevant,
right?
It really is relevant.
Yeah.
And because all of what's happening has been challenging people's identity to our own beliefs, and also to be able to break smoke screens and illusions. If we can break smoke screens and illusions, although we can tune into different realities, we can actually shift and change. And just to put one thing in this topic, which is when we think about the grays, you know, that story about all these beings that supposedly is an alternative timeline of our Earth, they got grays because they sterilized the entire population, and no one knows why, right? I mean, it has to be something that they did to everyone. We have a different timeline, we have a different reality. Grays went on, we are a different shift, and I think people came back into Earth and shifted something that we are now in. But eventually looking at the grays, and I was like, oh, that's, you know, I just ring the bell, say, how could it be possible for a planet to just sterilize themselves and to have to cross 80 DNA, you know? And looking at this Earth now, I said, oh, I get it.
Gee, I wonder how that could happen. You know, one of the, and I won't be specific because I can't, because, you know, we want the public to be able to see this, is I had a conversation with, let's say, a key player on the planet right now, and sitting down and having a conversation with the persona of that person. And then all of a sudden that persona morphs into a completely different looking being, and then announces to me who that really is the higher self of that person, coming from the future, wanting to talk about how to assist people to choose a different timeline, which brings us all the way back almost to where we started this conversation. And, you know, I don't know about you, but ever since I was a kid, there was probably nothing so amazing to think about, you know, than being able to go forward, time travel, all of that with time. You know, it seems like it's becoming more of a distinct possibility, not only with consciousness, but, you know, even with some technology, which I don't, you know, I'm looking at like this. Have you run across anything about that, about any of the technology things going on right now, the time shifting technologies, or even the, you know, the artificial, you know, kind of stuff going on right now, as far as that goes? Has that come into your awareness?
Well, more or less, what I can say is I can remember Atlantis. is that what you call in English? Atlantis, right? Atlantica,
Mm-hmm.
which is when they were destroyed. They were destroyed throughout several years of a meteor that came into Earth 2 times a year that spreads, this debris and then destroyed all the islands. And people chose to go to Egypt. That's why the main stories from Egypt, the early stories from Egypt were from ex-Atlantean, the only ones that survived on the planet. But most of them decided to stay there because they were so arrogant. Because the problem was that this shift into the natural energy that God, let's say God, the universe gives us. So imagine that all of us, I mean, I'm talking to everyone that's listening now, all of us has this light beam that has this frequency, and this is part of the nature. It's not supposed for us to shift this. And when Atlantean people started to do these Minotaurus beings with genetic experiences and really going to this kind of weird stuff, they changed the beam that is the nature. We are part of the nature. So it's really vibrationally, it really scrambled everything, and it attracted the meteor that started to bombard the Earth. Yeah. So if you understand things like that, although what you said, Candace, about all this technology, but although it's technology, it will never be able to change what is the real nature and power of this light beam that we are. That's why some of us really felt that, wow, I'm not gonna let my light beam be scrambled upon. Yep. I'm gonna just hold my light beam, because it's very important that some of us really stick to this. Yep. And if we hold it with enough strength, there is no way this other technology will come online, because it will actually, I'm remembering some of the magenta pixie stories also, because it will be so strong that nothing, because we'll be on 5D and all these things because it's away from the light, because it's scrambling the light, so it's not from 5D, and we are immune out here, in this plane. So that's the way I feel it, and although we can provide assistance to many people, I think all the choices have been done. And in the roundabout, I think around 2022, we're going to start seeing people get out. Some of them will be able to, shift. Some of them will not be able to shift anymore. So we just go in separate ways on Earth.
Well, we're really aligned there. This pattern of not only in the course, but some of my recent private sessions has, it's all come down to exactly this. There are many people who that light, and some see it as a Christian perspective, some see it as different things. We kind of talk about it in this metaphysical way, shall we say, but they're watching really tough choices to be made. Homes changing, partnerships dissolving, families having things going on with them. And some of what their understanding is, and I have to say it's my understanding too, is there's nothing more important than that light. Nothing. And so I won't compromise those very strong convictions that this is who I am, and I can't, I'm not going to scramble that. I'm with you, Pedro. Yeah. Thank you. Oh my gosh. We've been talking for about an hour, so let's think about wrapping up a little bit, just by letting me know what's new with you, class-wise. What projects have you got coming up? That kind of stuff. What's on the horizon?
So many. I've been, teaching quantum spirituality, which is basically a course of helping people to really figure out their own alignments with their own plan in life, mission, and also to understand basically how do you become a manifestation powerhouse, by making them understand what they are doing, making them understand that everything happens for a reason. And sometimes, spiritual people, everyone, says, oh, everything happens for a reason, but some stuff, it's not like that. And I really explain to the tiny detail that no, this happened because of that. Oh, I know, I'm getting, because people have this idea that reality is a literal reflex, just of what you're doing. It's not. Sometimes it's opposite reflex. For example, people that are very control freaks will probably have someone that is very, very loose, that is exactly the opposite, just doesn't pay bills, doesn't do anything. And this control freak is actually saying, this person, gives me trouble. How can she be like that? And blah, blah, blah. And it's looking at the other person, oh, you're really weird, you're always thinking about stuff, really a control freak. And if this person goes a little bit into the 0 point, maybe, this other one will shift too, and everything becomes a balance. So this is one of the classes I've been teaching. And then I have this other variants of hypnosis, also past life, my own version of it, but it's basically past life regressions,
Sure.
And this is what I've been doing, and also, really putting myself out there to assist people into open.
Pedro, I know you, obviously you have a well skilled bilingual component to you, and maybe even more. I know you can take English clients, but are you teaching any of your courses in English?
I can do. Actually, I was in Ireland. That's what I teach for 2 classes there in Dublin, which is very, very good experience. I have many clients in English, and because I have the script still to help. The thing with English is that when you start speaking, it starts coming, you need like 1 hour or 2 to get everything online. Although you are always seeing everything in English, but after 1 hour, 2 hours of speaking, it becomes really fluent.
I get
That's
it.
normal. And I can get really, really, really fluent. I know that. I'm not teaching English classes. That's because I'm in Portugal. But it's in my plans to start translating all this content and really to go up there somewhere, and starting to teach in English as well. It's here, it sometimes it comes, really have to do this English content, YouTube channel and stuff like that.
But, I know, I keep watching you speak in Portuguese going, I don't know what he's saying. I want to know what he's talking about.
Automatic translation is almost there.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. There's some other things happening. As a matter of fact, it's on my list of things to do today is to look up some transcribing stuff that's new on the horizon and help me actually do stuff. Like, I have no idea if we recorded anything. Most of everything I've ever done seems like, well, I'll get to it. And it just gets in this big pile over here. And I keep working with clients and students. But thanks for cluing us in on what you're doing. And, I want to thank you because you've been helping us sort of get the Portuguese translation of BQH getting to be ready. So, and I believe that might be the 6th or 7th language that we're going to start having available for the entire world. And you've been such a support in that regard. I want to thank you publicly.
Let's plan you coming here to Portugal. I
so want to. As soon as I don't have to stick anything up my nose or jab anything in my body, I'll be there.
No, here they're allowed to do the normal things, with the swab and everything. So
yeah, I know.
But just to come in and to fly out and the rest is just
even
at this point.
Even the people who flew into Kansas, let's just say it was an adventure, and I thanked them extra for showing up, and many of the people who drove in were like, I'm driving in, even though it's X hundreds of miles, I'm driving in. So there's a thing there, and I'm still working on, I've got a caregiver for Dad, but she's not full-time and she's not overnight. So I'm kind of stuck here until or unless I've got more assistance, but I know that's coming. And
everything's going to be changed till April, May 2022. Let's hope this worldwide thing.
And you said 22, not 52, right? Because I don't think I'm going to live. Well, maybe I will. If I live as long as Dad, that's exactly how old I would be.
Just by curiosity, why did you mention 52?
Because I almost, you said 22, but in a way, the words came out 52. And
You
I'm
know,
like, I know
I
you
had
said 22, but I heard 52, and that would have made me 91, just like my dad.
I'm just having a weird moment here right now. Just let's pause here. I had a session yesterday with someone,
Yeah.
and I got her to the higher self, and I asked, what is the plan here? And she said, pay attention to this because it's very funny. People have to change till 2022 to be able to shift definitely in 2052.
Okay, so my body is reverberating all over the place.
And now you imagine 2052, and so I was like, what?
This happened all week long with the BQH class. All week long, somebody would say something and like, that just happened. It's crazy and exciting. It's fun, isn't it?
It is very fun.
It's fun. Well, you know what else is fun has been catching up with you, Pedro. Thank you so much. We'll put your links down below and where people can find you. I've had more than one session with my beautiful friend, Pedro Frias, and I highly recommend him to everyone out there. So, all right, till next time. Thanks, Pedro. And thanks everyone for joining in. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.